Hello, everyone. Welcome to Feedstuffs 365. I'm Sarah Muirhead, and agricultural meteorologist Greg Soulje is with us here on this extremely cold Friday. Greg?
Yes, redefining cold, the season's coldest air. Even cold, where folks are usually accustomed to the cold. Egads, what, 34 below up in northern Minnesota, 15 to 20 below in northern Illinois. And, these temperatures are just phenomenal. And that's without any snow cover on the ground for now. So get used to it. We're just getting ramped up here in either winter storm mode or cold wave weather conditions here for the next several days. And we'll talk about it here going forward over the next few minutes.
Very good. All right. Give us that update.
All right, and here we go. And we'll talk about, obviously, weather for next week on this weekend's edition of This Week in Agribusiness. And hopefully, weather should quiet down after about Monday for cleanup and recovery and getting things where it needs to be from a feed, supply, movement of livestock, and even the power grid, I think, is going to be suspect in the coming days. There's a quick check on the headlines, the highlights going forward. That shade of blue that goes all the way down to the Rio Grande, that's the cold wave weather pattern. That deeper shade of blue that runs from, just north of Dallas-Fort Worth, right in the heart of it, Oklahoma City, up to about the I-70 corridor. From there, all the way into western Pennsylvania, probably a foot and a half of low moisture content, ultimately windblown snow. So road crews may clear that off, but come right back at you. Those rural areas are going to be just the dickens to stay cleared out. And this is this icy, crystalline, low moisture content, salt, brine, just does not do its thing really all that effectively when you get that snow packed on down. And of course, that, purple color, we'll put it that way, is the outline of a major ice storm. The more significant, probably quarter to half to maybe 3/4 of an inch of ice and glaze, northern Louisiana, a good chunk of southeastern Arkansas, right across the Tennessee Valley. And some of that may catch maybe northern Atlanta, the Georgia mountains, the Atlanta metro, and then up towards around Asheville before it briefly turns over to snow and that storm moves out early next week. So this is a wide and far-reaching, not necessarily one big, hairy monster low, but just a series of systems gliding over these contrasting air masses from northwest to southeast across the eastern half of the country. You can see the cold weather-related advisories as they extend out of the Canadian Prairie down through just about northern Missouri, northern Illinois. That purple-pink area is some degree of winter storm-related warnings or advisories that extend all the way down to the Rio Grande, West Texas cotton and cattle country, Lubbock, Amarillo, Del Rio, just to name a few. And they will drop as far south as almost Corpus Christi or out northwest of about Houston, then extend into the Ohio Valley and the lower lakes region. Again, this will be a multi-day event, not necessarily storm or low after another, just waves. So the moisture will tend to ebb and flow. Maybe that gives some opportunity for salting in some of the ice storm areas, assessment of the power grid and or snow removal. But ultimately, just any slight breeze will get some of this blowing and drifting nonsense going. There's sort of the meteorology right now as it stands. That's the infrared satellite picture. Can't really get too much out of it, with the exception of you can see a little sort of swirl off of Baja, California. You can see multiple little dips and ripples coming straight out of Siberia down along and west of the at least Canadian divide. And when you get those two setups going, you're going to marry up these two weather systems, buckle the jet stream pattern, coalesce them or converge these wind fields. And that's how you get winter storm development, or systems that will slowly come out bits and pieces before the final wave, if you will, makes its move between Sunday and Monday. So, and you can see a separate, really transpolar jet across central Canada, dropping into the western lakes region. That embodies the coldest of the air. And boy, if we can get this snowpack and snow cover down across the plains and Corn Belt locales, if you thought it was cold this morning alone, temperature-wise, readings are down and still holding below zero into western Illinois, northern Missouri. Just wait till Monday morning under the old clear sky, light wind, fresh snow cover routine. Wind chills won't be barbaric, but temperatures may be, considering the degree of snowpack and snow cover we're going to add. There's the weather maps and charts. You can see the main body of that Arctic high over western Canada. The winds run clockwise around that high. They're banked up, and what we got going are upslope snows. And the snows, while it's going to be a troublesome situation for livestock operations and rural travel, we really need them. There's a lot of exposed winter wheat that has no snow cover to speak of. It's going to be the race, the cold, versus the snowpack and snow cover, and just kind of taking a look at temperatures this morning. The year, at least the western flank of some of that snow is beginning to accumulate over western Kansas and the panhandle of Nebraska, where you go into Nebraska, 5 to 10 below current air temperatures, single digits and low teens over the bare ground areas of Kansas. So it'll be the race that is underway. Meanwhile, going forward here, and if we click on the right mouse there, Greg, there are the Corn Belt highlights, 20 below into the areas of north of Minnesota, North Dakota, parts of South Dakota as well, Wisconsin as well. They were 15 to 20 below. As far south as Madison this morning was widespread sub-zero cold all the way down the mid-Mississippi Valley. And, of course, livestock managers, producers, bin and barn operators, farm managers all getting ready for the impending cold wave weather pattern that sets up like this. The barbaric wind chills and temperatures combined are out of the Dakotas to the western Great Lakes region. The cold weather, by the way, is likely to linger probably for the next 2 or 3 weeks. I would be surprised if parts of the Midwest and Corn Belt that do not, especially eastern areas, the Midwest, do not get above freezing for the next 2 or 3 weeks. And multiple rounds of hard frost and freeze all the way down into the north into South Texas citrus. We think it's going to miss Florida. They had some snow in the panhandle a few days ago and cold into some of the strawberry areas of north central Florida, but we think that's going to mostly dash to the northeast, the last of the cold air. There is a sub-zero cold this morning, widespread across the northern half of the plains, 20 below, up across North Dakota and neighboring areas. Concern, as we just talked about the winter wheat fields and the race between the cold and the snow, which is breaking out in the high plains areas of Kansas, Nebraska, and Colorado as we speak. And, of course, many folks as far south as central Texas are getting things wrapped up and ready to go for the transition from rain, which is currently underway down there, to freezing rain and a major ice storm in that particular part of the southern plains that points east-northeast. Might be tough to pick up here, but readings will stay below zero along the I-80 corridor on northward for high temperatures, if you want to call them that today. Lows back down to 25 to 30 below up near the Canadian border. Temps may actually begin to modify and moderate. If we put just the slightest amount of moisture in this type of cold, we can actually get dew points, and we keep track of that even in these cold wave weather patterns. We actually may get dew points and temperatures to come up a little bit. So it may be a saving grace to get some snow into this air mass to put a little moisture in it, and hence get temperatures to respond ever so slightly going forward. Meanwhile, in the southern states, it's a fairly quiet setup. A little rain down through Georgia. Again, winter storm watches over the Carolinas, as far south as almost Augusta, Georgia, back into northern Alabama. Widespread watches and warnings through Mississippi, Cotton Belt country, and the Delta. And, of course, producers are monitoring weather and get ready to go there on the corridor of heavy ice and snow, which will really come through in 2 or 3 waves or stages. So, that maybe gives some opportunity to get caught up, assess things from power and feed and supplies and movement and travel, whether it's the snow or ice end of things, with the main area of at least 6+ inches. And it's probably going to be double that out of Oklahoma City, I-70 corridor, either side of that or slightly south and east of that, although we may get a little piece of it that breaks out some of the snowfall that maybe pushes close to 6 or 7 inches as far west as maybe Danville and Champaign. But that I-70 corridor on southward easily going to be probably, before all is said and done, a foot and a half of a low moisture content, easily blown around snowfall. And, of course, the corridor of ice will move out of Louisiana into areas around Memphis, Tennessee, northern and western Mississippi, move up into the eastern Tennessee Valley, and then break. We get this cold air damming, that is, where the cold air is locked in along and west of the Appalachians. So Atlanta and points north and west from there will have to go through first a period of freezing rain before they shift back over to rain, then shift over to snow before things wind down there on Monday. So a very problematic setup as well over the southeastern states going forward. If you want fairly quiet, benign weather, Pacific West and Northwest, dense fog in the valleys of California, who cares? Very easy to take weather pattern there. And, of course, some moisture breaking out the Four Corners area. There's one issue still mounting is the lack of snowpack and snow cover. I think it's just running maybe 40 or 50% of normal into the Cascades, and we should have more, and the water equivalencies under a foot ought to be more at this point in the wintertime season. So a little consternation and maybe forward thinking on using a La Nina setup. You don't get a progression of weather systems into that part of the country. So we may be looking at runoff potential issues moving forward into late spring and summertime season. Now on to, let's dramatically shift gears and go into Argentina. They've had some rain and some welcome rain, albeit at a 10th to a half in some of the drier reaches of Argentina. there's still some subtle talk about some building and returning heat and dry weather in the next 7 to 10 days down through that particular area. Some spots, by the way, did see locally over an inch of rain. Temperatures are closer to seasonal norms. It's that La Pampa as well as Formosa area, Chaco, that is dry. We may be looking at readings that and have had readings that have been in the upper 90s to low 100s there. So still some dryness concerns, and it's become a little more muddled on that extended spell of heat and dry time into parts of central and southern Argentina. So we're doing the best we can here for markets in the U.S., but they did get some degree of rainfall. It's not enough to bring things where they need to be from a soil moisture standpoint, but over the past week, it has rained in central and southern Argentina. No problems in Brazil, still by and large timely rain. Crops are ahead of schedule. Some still lingering dryness and a little bit of heat with upper 90s to near 100. East central and southeastern sections. Rainfall amounts have been generally under a quarter inch there. Basically in the usual summertime array of a tenth to a half over the remainder of Brazil. Temperatures have been basically a couple of degrees either side of seasonal norms, with again some mid to upper 90s in some of those eastern areas. Crop reports from the various governments out through Paraná, they have about 90% of the beans in good condition. 12% of the crop has reached maturity, and we're beginning to move through the usual reproductive stages over the remainder of that crop going forward here in the next couple of months. And through the Rio Grande do Sul, 21% of the beans are now in the flowering stage, grain fill stage at 5%. So those crops are moving lickety-split, and overall, still a pretty favorable setup. Nothing from a market standpoint there. If it's going to come out of South America, it's going to come out of Argentina, or issues around here with the severity of the winter weather over the next couple of days. But that's the best we can do for you on the market side of the ledger. And I think they have been bumping up some of the potential yields on the soybean side of things, at least the government of Brazil has over the past few days. There's the Friday afternoon. We'll shift gears again and go back to the domestic weather scene. You can see the high, the upslope northeast wind. So that gets snow coming out of Colorado and Wyoming into areas of Nebraska and Kansas. There is rain for now and some drought relief from about the Red River on southward, but we're going to undercut that warm layer with a kind of a shallow, colder layer at the surface. That's a classic freezing rain setup. That's where the rain comes out in liquid form, freezes on contact as opposed to sleet or snow. So temperatures will be falling during the course of the day across Texas, and the ice will begin to build up, as well as the snowfall beginning to fall at a pretty good clip across Kansas as well as Nebraska. By tomorrow morning, it's a mess on the central and southern plains from moderate and heavy snowfall. And you can see there's no big low or L coming out. It's just the thermodynamics of the atmosphere and systems up aloft are they're driving all this moisture. So again, there'll be a tendency for stuff to ebb and flow in one form or fashion or another. There's Saturday afternoon and the northward expansion of at least the potential for some accumulating snow. Although the air is so extremely dry, this might be a little overdone. We may see some accumulation as far north as the Kankakee and maybe into southeastern Iowa, but it's really either side of that I-70 corridor that is concerned. Usually along and just north of the freezing rain area is where you get the deeper moisture profile and you come up with the heavier snowfall potential. So Oklahoma Panhandle, areas just north of the Ozarks, I-70 corridor, into areas of central Indiana as well as Ohio. But at least there's some drought improvement. There's rain coming on down over central and southern Texas. And before that is all said and done, there may be a spell of some freezing rain and sleet just outside of maybe Houston and Corpus Christi going forward here by Sunday morning. And the snows, again, there's no big low per se. The main low itself is still way down into the lower Mississippi Valley and the central Gulf Coast. That usually means that, we're not going to have monster all at once accumulations over Illinois, the eastern Corn Belt areas, east and south, but it will just be a duration, a process, hours, if you will, of the snow stuff going on. So expect probably 2 or 3 waves, episodes, winding down, winding up of these moisture outbreaks in one form or another over the plains and Corn Belt going forward over the next 2 or 3 days. Next couple of days, significant moisture in one form or another. You may not like it, but there's some drought relief over the southern plains and lower Mississippi Valley regions. And where we need some drought improvement, there's the drought monitor from a couple of days ago, kind of worsening over Oklahoma, Arkansas, the southeastern plains, same with central, south central, and southern Texas. We're holding our own with regard to dryness and drought. That was a big story. We were down in Gordyville, Illinois, the Midwest Farm Expo there a couple of days ago at Gordyville, just outside of Gifford, Illinois. Big talk continues to be dryness and drought even in wintertime. 13 to 16 inches shy of normal precip since the beginning of last year, 2025, in Champaign County. So some work to do there, and folks are worried it's going to come all at once. Don't think it will. Should get some improvement, and we'll talk about the spring forecast we have here going forward as we get deeper on into the late winter and springtime season. Snow cover a couple of weeks ago was only about 15 to 20% of normal. This is about 25% covering of the nation with snowpack and snow cover. We will easily double that. I would be surprised if by early next week we've got maybe half to 2/3 of the country covered in snow. Next 7 days, the moisture is here, and it's in the wrong form for some areas of Texas, Oklahoma, the lower Mississippi Valley, but it is what it is. You can see the last little piece of that storm coming out of the southeastern plains Monday, lifting out Tuesday, and it's just a parade of little upper troughs, a flow out of Canada that keeps temperatures cold, especially east of the Missouri River going forward over the next 5 to 7 days for openers. Warmth along and west of the divide relative to late January, early February. And there are the weather maps and charts with, again, a series of cold fronts to make their move across the middle part of the country. We get some brief moderation of temperatures over the plains and Corn Belt areas, back down to below zero, especially with all the snow cover that will be on the ground. So any of these cold air masses get kind of refrigerated and accentuated by the snow on the ground. Quick highlights are 1 to 2 feet of snow from the Ozarks into the mid-Atlantic region. The north end of that will be up to about I-70. Major ice at a half to 1 inch, as mentioned, Texas through the mid-south across interior sections of the southeast. Some of that will accrete down into northern parts of Georgia as well. Livestock operators, bin environment managers, I'm sure, are on their toes and getting things ready to go. Temperatures, that's it. They're falling by the wayside down through southern and eastern Texas, single digits and low teens with the snow coming through. As the snow winds down, we'll turn it barbarically cold as well, with daytime readings still only in the upper 20s and 30s as far south as central Texas, upper 30s to mid 40s down to the north end of South Texas Citrus, where we're going to keep an eye on temperatures going forward. There's a look at lows by tomorrow morning in southern Texas. They are into the upper teens to mid 20s to almost Houston, and probably mid 20s to low 30s, all the way down to about the Rio Grande, lower Rio Grande to southern Texas. Florida should get basically unscathed except for the panhandle with regard to cold air. Readings will continue to at least moderate some in the middle part of the week before they drop off again to below average in the eastern Corn Belt locales. The next 6 to 10 days, we're not going to put up any fight on this. That's the story there. At least is in a quieter weather picture going forward for probably the waning days of the month of January. February, though, Sarah, and into March, as we talked about on the live stream last one, will turn busier. The propensity for weaker systems, but more snowfall back in the forecast in our general neck of the woods. So certainly best wishes on everyone trying to stay up to date and manage this nonsense of the plains and Corn Belt locales and the southern states going forward for this weekend.
Yeah, and best wishes to all of you that are traveling to Atlanta for IPPE this weekend, Monday, whenever you're going in there. Yeah, lots to watch. I know the team down there at IPPE is really providing updates, so be sure you check in on all of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're hoping it just stays to the north. That's my hope.
I don't know if I can guarantee that, but best wishes and good luck on the travel scene.
Very good. All right, we'll talk to you next week, Greg. Thank you, and thank you all for tuning in.